Have you ever wondered why some encounters leave you feeling strangely less alive, like the very air around you has thinned? Not angry, not fearful, not even dramatic, just empty. It's as though the warmth that makes life feel real has quietly drained away, leaving behind only the shell of connection. You walk away asking yourself, why do I feel dimmer, as though something precious slipped out of me without my consent? For most of us, moments like this are easy to dismiss. We tell ourselves it's stress, fatigue, or simply being too sensitive. But what if those sensations are not accidents? What if they are signals? Your soul whispering that you've brushed against something profoundly unsettling, a presence that looks human yet feeds in ways we cannot see. Across centuries, seers and thinkers have spoken of such presences. Not monsters, not demons in folklore, but people, neighbors, colleagues, even loved ones whose lives are powered not by inner light, but by the light they take from others. Ancient traditions gave them many names: archons, hungry ghosts, mechanical humans. Carl Jung called them psychic vampires. Edgar Cayce described them as vessels without true spiritual animation. And even Albert Einstein cautioned that when we forget our unity with the whole, we become prisoners of illusion, cut off, consuming, but never creating. This may sound abstract until you remember a moment in your own life. The friend who always left you exhausted, the partner whose charm never carried depth, the leader whose words inspired but never nourished. These aren't just personality flaws. They may be glimpses into a deeper reality that not every human interaction is soul to soul. Some are transactions, some are extractions, some are, in essence, parasitic. And here lies the urgent question. In an age overflowing with noise, distraction, and performance, how do we protect the sacred core of who we are? How do we guard our energy without shutting our hearts? How do we walk in discernment without slipping into fear or judgment? Imagine for a moment that your soul is a wellspring. When nurtured, it overflows, refreshing not only you, but everyone you touch. But in the presence of what we'll call spiritual parasites, that wellspring doesn't overflow. It leaks. Slowly, silently through the cracks of manipulation, flattery, endless drama, or simple hollowness. You don't notice it at first. But one day you wake up and wonder why your joy feels muted, why your clarity feels fogged, why your light feels dimmer. The truth is this: awareness is your first shield. When you see what is happening, the silent drain begins to lose its hold. And this is the purpose of our journey today. Not to demonize, not to frighten, but to awaken. To put language to the experiences you've carried quietly. To show you how to recognize the subtle ways spiritual parasites feed. And most importantly, to give you tools to reclaim your light so that you don't just survive in their presence, but thrive far beyond their reach. So I invite you to stay with me until the very end. Because nearly no one speaks of the final pattern we'll uncover, and once you see it, you'll understand why your energy has felt stolen in ways you could never quite explain. And when you do, you'll carry not just knowledge, but empowerment. The knowing that your soul is yours alone, sovereign, radiant, untouchable. Throughout human history, people have sensed that not every wound comes from a visible blade, and not every theft involves gold or silver. Some losses are harder to name: the sudden heaviness after meeting someone, the inexplicable fatigue that follows a simple conversation, the strange emptiness that lingers after being in a particular person's presence. Ancient societies gave these experiences names long before psychology or neuroscience emerged. And one of the most haunting metaphors that persists across cultures is the idea of the spiritual parasite. In the mysticism of the Gnostics, we find the archons, entities described as shadowy rulers who feed on human ignorance and fear. They were not portrayed as monsters in the Hollywood sense, but as subtle manipulators, whispering doubts and distractions to keep souls trapped in cycles of despair. For the Gnostics, human beings were vessels of divine light, but not all vessels were intact. Some leaked, some were dim, some were easily invaded by darker influences that sapped their vitality. The idea was clear. Just as a parasite feeds off the body, so too can energies feed off the soul. If we turn eastward, ancient Indian scriptures spoke of asuras, beings driven by hunger for power and emotional chaos. They thrived not by building harmony, but by consuming the life force of others. Tibetan Buddhism, too, warned of hungry ghosts, spirits with enormous bellies but tiny throats, forever craving but never fulfilled. These images were not fantasy alone. They were metaphors for human conditions we still recognize today: the insatiable friend, the manipulative relative, the partner who drains without giving. Centuries later, Carl Jung stood at the crossroads of myth and psychology and gave us language that echoed these ancient warnings. He described what he called psychic vampires, people who, cut off from their own unconscious depths, unconsciously tap into the energy of others. Jung was not speaking of supernatural creatures. He was speaking of human patterns. Individuals who refuse to confront their own shadows often project them outward, ensnaring others into endless cycles of drama and conflict. In this sense, a spiritual parasite is not always an external demon. It can be the unhealed wound of another, clinging to your energy because it cannot generate its own. Edgar Cayce, the famed American mystic of the 20th century, offered another perspective. In his trance readings, Cayce often spoke of souls that seemed asleep, bodies animated but lacking true spiritual resonance. Such beings, he suggested, were not evil, but empty. Yet their emptiness created a vacuum that drew energy from those around them. Being in their presence could feel like stepping into a void, conversations that went nowhere, relationships that consumed but never nurtured, encounters that left one feeling spiritually malnourished. Even Albert Einstein, though a physicist, contributed insight to this conversation. He wrote that a human being is part of a whole, called by us the universe, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. That delusion leads us to believe we are separate, and in this illusion of separateness, we sometimes forget how profoundly entangled our energies truly are. If consciousness is interconnected, then energy exchange is inevitable. The question becomes, are we exchanging light and mutual nourishment, or are we participating in relationships of one-way depletion? Now pause for a moment and look at the state of our modern world. Never before have we been so digitally connected and yet so spiritually exhausted. Social media is filled with constant comparisons, manipulations of image, subtle pressures that drain self-worth without ever speaking a word. Workplaces demand endless output while recognition rarely flows back. Even families, once places of refuge, can become arenas of unspoken tension where love is conditional and presence is transactional. These environments create perfect breeding grounds for the dynamics the ancients described, exchanges where one spirit feeds while another withers. And this is not just metaphor. Psychology shows that emotional contagion is real. We absorb the moods and energies of those around us, often unconsciously. Neuroscience points to mirror neurons, which allow us to empathize but also make us vulnerable to carrying the weight of another's despair. When these mechanisms are hijacked by individuals who chronically offload their shadows, we experience what traditions call spiritual vampirism. The science may use different terms, but the experience is the same. We leave certain interactions feeling robbed of our vitality. Think back to your own life. Who in your circle leaves you feeling uplifted, as though your inner flame burns brighter? And who leaves you restless, anxious, or inexplicably tired? These patterns are not coincidences. They are signals. They are signals. Your spirit's way of alerting you to where energy is exchanged in harmony and where it is being siphoned without return. So Chapter 1 lays the groundwork. The idea of spiritual parasites is not just a modern meme, but a recurring truth across traditions, psychology, and even science. Whether described as archons, hungry ghosts, psychic vampires, or energy drains, The pattern is strikingly consistent. Something in human experience testifies that energy can be stolen in ways words alone cannot describe. But this raises a pressing question. How do these parasites actually operate? What are the mechanisms, psychological, emotional, even energetic, that allow them to drain without speaking a word? That is where we now turn. In the next chapter, we will move beyond origins into the anatomy of the drain itself, how subtle cues, unspoken dynamics, and unconscious hooks can turn everyday encounters into spiritual siphonings. And most importantly, how you can begin to see them before they silently write themselves into your story. If the first chapter revealed the roots of the spiritual parasite across cultures and psychology, then here we must ask, how do they actually feed? What makes this phenomenon so unsettling is not the image of fangs or claws, but the quiet, invisible ways energy is siphoned without a word spoken, without a hand lifted. The drain happens in silence, in subtle cues, in patterns of behavior so ordinary we often don't recognize them until we're already depleted. At the heart of every parasitic exchange lies attention. Attention is not neutral, it is currency, fuel, the very flame that keeps our inner world alive. Spiritual parasites have learned, consciously or not, to capture and monopolize it. They may do this through endless complaints, retelling the same dramas again and again, ensuring that your energy is tied up in their narrative. Others do it by constant, subtle provocation, backhanded comments, manipulative silences, or emotional neediness that keeps you guessing. In all these cases, your focus is slowly pulled away from your center, and once attention has been hooked, your vitality follows. Psychologists note that our brains are wired to prioritize what feels unresolved. This is why unresolved interactions, even small ones, linger far longer than positive ones. The spiritual parasite leverages this, leaving you unsettled, always chasing resolution, always giving more of your energy in hopes of reaching peace that never arrives. Energy drain is not just mental, it is deeply emotional. Research in neuroscience confirms that humans are wired with mirror neurons that unconsciously absorb and replicate the emotions of those around us. This is a beautiful gift when shared with someone joyful. It allows us to laugh, dance, and celebrate together. But in the presence of a spiritual parasite, this gift becomes a weapon. Their despair, anger, or constant dissatisfaction becomes yours. Without saying a word, they seed heaviness into your system, and soon you find yourself carrying emotions that were never originally yours. Carl Jung saw this dynamic clearly. He described how individuals cut off from their own shadows will unconsciously project them outward, seeking someone else to hold what they refuse to face. In other words, the parasite doesn't just feed, it transfers its burden. What they cannot metabolize within, they unload onto you. And if you're not aware, you may mistake that weight for your own. Some parasitic drains are not loud or dramatic, they are eerily quiet. You've met people like this? They sit beside you, they speak politely, but something about their presence feels like a vacuum. Conversations don't spark life, they extinguish it. These individuals may not even act with malice. They are simply disconnected from their own source of inner light. Edgar Cayce warned of such beings, souls asleep, bodies animated yet empty of resonance. Like a sponge, they absorb without replenishing, and if you stay too long, you may leave wondering why you feel spiritually starved. Another mechanism is chaos. Some spiritual parasites thrive by creating turbulence around them because chaos keeps them at the center. The moment you step into their orbit, you're caught in the swirl of their crises, arguments, or shifting moods. Ingo Swann, the psychic researcher, described energy fields as constantly interacting and noted how some individuals project waves of disruption that destabilize those around them. The parasite uses chaos as bait. Your instinct to help, fix, or calm becomes the very cord through which your energy flows out. Think of the friend who always needs rescuing but never grows. The colleague who stirs conflict only to play victim. the partner who cycles through breakdowns that you are expected to mend. In each case, your energy is redirected from building your own life toward patching the endless holes in theirs. And no matter how much you give, it is never enough, because their survival depends on the drain continuing. Perhaps the most insidious part is that these drains often cloak themselves in intimacy. They are friends, partners, even family members. This is why the effect feels so violating. You're not losing energy to a stranger in the street, but to someone you've opened your heart to. Here we see Einstein's warning about the illusion of separateness in reverse. Our interconnectedness can nourish, but it can also expose us to those who unconsciously exploit it. Love without discernment can become the very channel through which your vitality leaks. It's important to realize most spiritual parasites are not cartoon villains plotting your downfall. Many are unconscious. They operate from wounds, from shadows, from an inner void they themselves don't understand. The contract is unspoken. They take, you give, until you awaken to the imbalance. This realization shifts the narrative away from judgment toward empowerment. If the drain is unconscious, then awareness itself begins to sever the cord. Now that we've mapped the anatomy of the drain, one truth emerges. Energy is not stolen violently, it is siphoned subtly. Through attention, emotions, presence, chaos, and intimacy, the parasite finds its way into your field. Recognizing these mechanisms is the first layer of protection, because once you see them clearly, you are no longer trapped in the fog of confusion. But recognition alone is not enough. The next challenge is learning how to break free, how to set boundaries without bitterness, how to guard your inner flame without hardening your heart. That is where we turn next, the strategies of resilience, the wisdom traditions, and psychological tools that show us not only how to survive the drain, but how to transform it into deeper strength. By now, you may have started to recognize the patterns of spiritual parasites in your own life, the subtle drains of attention, the emotional contagion, the vacuum of presence, the endless cycle of chaos. Awareness, as we saw in the last chapter, is the first line of defense. But knowing the anatomy of the drain is not enough. To reclaim your light, you must also take action. Breaking free is not about severing ties in anger or walling yourself off in fear. It is about learning how to stand in your power, how to discern without judgment, and how to walk in clarity where once there was confusion. The moment you give something a name, you strip it of its power to hide. Many people live for years under the weight of invisible drains because they cannot identify what's happening. They blame themselves for being tired, accuse themselves of weakness, or dismiss their intuition as paranoia. The first act of freedom is to trust your perception. If you feel consistently emptied after interacting with someone, that feeling is real. Naming the pattern, whether you call it energy vampirism, projection, or spiritual parasitism, creates the boundary line in your awareness. And awareness is what opens the door to choice. Carl Jung often said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is the core of breaking free, pulling the dynamic out of shadow and into the light. Once you see it, you can decide how to respond instead of being unconsciously controlled by it. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates. They define what you allow in and what you will not. For those entangled with spiritual parasites, boundaries often feel impossible because guilt and obligation blur the lines. Yet boundaries are the very medicine needed to stop the drain. Setting one may be as simple as limiting time spent with a draining person, refusing to engage in endless cycles of drama, or pausing before responding to manipulative messages. Edgar Cayce taught that the soul is never harmed by standing in truth. To say no when your energy is being consumed is not cruelty, it is alignment. Think of it like tending a fire. If you let every passerby take wood from your pile, soon you'll have no flame left. Boundaries protect your inner fire so that you can continue to warm yourself and those who genuinely seek your light. But here lies a deeper challenge. Spiritual parasites only succeed when they find a hook within us. Perhaps it's the desire to be liked, the fear of rejection, or the need to be seen as endlessly giving. These inner vulnerabilities are what the parasite unconsciously latches onto. Breaking free, therefore, is not only about changing your outer behavior, it's about healing the wounds inside that made the drain possible in the first place. Jung's shadow work invites us to ask, why do I allow this dynamic? What part of me believes I must sacrifice myself to be loved? In sitting honestly with these questions, we transform not just the relationship but ourselves. The parasite may never change, but when the hook is gone, the cord cannot attach. Energy is not meant to be hoarded, it is meant to circulate. Once you begin to reclaim what was lost, the next step is to redirect it toward life-giving practices. Meditation, journaling, prayer, or time in nature all serve to realign your field. Ingo Swann described human consciousness as an electromagnetic field, one that could be expanded or depleted depending on how we care for it. Every moment you invest in grounding, clarity, and creative expression strengthens that field, making you less susceptible to parasitic drains. Einstein's vision of unity reminds us that when you raise your vibration, you don't just protect yourself, you strengthen the web of humanity. Each act of reclaiming your light contributes to the healing of the whole. Finally, breaking free is not always about cutting people out of your life, though sometimes that is necessary. It is about choosing honesty. Honest proximity means staying in relationship, but with clear boundaries, compassion, and self-awareness. Honest distance means blessing from afar without gossip, ridicule, or resentment. Both are forms of freedom because both honor your sovereignty without slipping into judgment. Remember, discernment is not dehumanization. As Jung warned, if we demonize the other, we only shrink our own soul. Spiritual parasites are often unhealed humans carrying their own shadows. Protecting yourself does not require condemnation. It requires clarity. And clarity allows you to step forward without bitterness, carrying wisdom instead of wounds. Breaking free, then, is a process of awareness, boundaries, healing, redirection, and honest choice. It is not a single act, but an ongoing practice, a way of living that keeps your energy sovereign and your soul intact. And as you practice these steps, something extraordinary happens. Your light not only recovers, it begins to grow brighter. You stop living in reaction to drains and start living in alignment with your true purpose. But what does that look like in practice? How does reclaiming your energy translate into a life of deeper radiance, wisdom, and strength? That is the focus of the next chapter, where we move from defense to empowerment, from survival to flourishing. Because freedom from spiritual parasites is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a new one, the life you were always meant to live, untethered, luminous, and free. Breaking free from spiritual parasites is not the end of the journey, it is the threshold. Because freedom is not only about cutting cords and closing doors. True freedom is about rediscovering the vitality that was always yours, and then choosing to live radiantly in a world that often encourages dimness. The question becomes, once we've reclaimed our energy, how do we embody empowerment? How do we live as luminous beings who no longer just survive drains, but shine so brightly that no shadow can cling for long? Radiance begins not with what others see, but with what you cultivate within. Think of your soul as a lantern. When the flame burns steady, its glow extends outward, guiding not only yourself but everyone around you. Carl Jung often emphasized that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. To live radiantly, then, is to shed the masks, release the false roles, and step into alignment with your authentic self. Empowerment is not about control over others. It is about mastery of your own energy, your own truth, your own light. Albert Einstein echoed this truth when he reminded us that our task must be to free ourselves from this prison of separateness by widening our circle of compassion. Living radiantly is not simply self-protection, it is the art of expansion. When your heart opens in authentic compassion, not pity, not martyrdom, but genuine presence, you become untouchable by parasitic drains. Why? Because compassion flows freely without expectation. It gives without attachment, and therefore nothing can be siphoned away. Radiance is not an abstract state. It is built in the rhythms of daily life. Every choice becomes a brushstroke in the painting of your soul. Meditation offers you the silence to return to your center. Journaling becomes a mirror, reflecting truths you might otherwise ignore. Movement, whether through walking in nature, yoga, or dance, keeps your energy field circulating, preventing stagnation. Edgar Cayce often spoke of harmony between mind, body, and spirit as the cornerstone of healing. By nurturing each layer daily, you strengthen the field that keeps you vibrant. These practices are not chores, they are nourishment. They are how you refill the well so that you no longer depend on others to sustain you. The more consistently you tend to them, the more your presence itself becomes radiant, unshakable by outside influences. Empowerment does not mean closing your heart, it means loving wisely. This is perhaps the most revolutionary act in a world where so many confuse love with self-sacrifice. Boundaried love is generous but discerning, compassionate but firm. It says, I honor the light in you, but I will not let your shadows consume mine. This balance prevents bitterness while maintaining sovereignty. Ingo Swann observed that energy fields are strongest when coherent, when thoughts, feelings, and actions align. Boundaried love is coherence in action. It allows you to give freely without losing yourself, to stay open without being drained. In relationships, this becomes a magnetic force. People sense your strength, not because you dominate, but because you radiate clarity. Every encounter with a spiritual parasite can become a lesson in disguise. Instead of carrying bitterness, you can choose to extract wisdom. Ask yourself, what did this experience teach me about my boundaries, my needs, my hidden vulnerabilities? Empowerment is forged in this alchemy, turning wounds into wisdom, drains into discernment. Carl Jung taught that the shadow, once integrated, becomes a source of strength. What once left you depleted can, over time, sharpen your awareness, deepen your compassion, and anchor your sovereignty. The very forces that sought to dim you become the catalysts for your brilliance. There is another ripple effect of living radiantly. You become a mirror for others. Your presence begins to challenge people, not through confrontation, but through example. Those who are ready to awaken will be drawn to your light, while those who seek only to drain may quietly step back, unable to hook into your clarity. This natural separation is not rejection. It is resonance. Energy finds its level, and your radiance ensures you attract what nourishes rather than what consumes. Think of how one candle can light 1,000 others without ever losing its flame. This is the essence of empowerment. By living authentically and brightly, you give permission for others to do the same. So, living radiantly is not just a personal victory. It is a collective act. Every time you choose authenticity over conformity, discernment over depletion, and compassion over judgment, you strengthen the fabric of human consciousness. You are no longer reacting to parasites. You are creating a field where they cannot thrive. And yet, there is more to this journey. Radiance must not remain abstract. It must translate into action. The next chapter will explore the practical tools, the hands-on strategies and disciplines that help you embody this radiance day by day. Because empowerment is not a one-time realization, it is a lifelong practice, a rhythm, a way of walking in the world with your soul intact and your light undimmed. Radiance, as we saw in the last chapter, is not just a state of mind, it's a way of living. But knowing you want to live brightly and actually sustaining that light are two different things. Spiritual parasites thrive not because we are weak, but because life without practices is like a house without a foundation. Beautiful on the outside, but vulnerable to every storm. To keep your light sovereign, you need tools. You need daily disciplines that anchor you, protect you, and steadily strengthen the flame within. The simplest, yet most profound tool is the breath. Your breath is always with you, always available, always capable of bringing you back to the present moment. When you feel drained, scattered, or caught in someone else's chaos, take a pause. Close your eyes. Breathe in slowly through your nose, letting your lungs fill fully. Hold gently. Exhale with intention. This simple act reclaims your nervous system and recenters your energy. Meditation expands this practice further. It is not about silencing every thought, but about sitting with what arises without fear. In his readings, Edgar Cayce emphasized the power of attunement, quiet moments in which the soul realigns with its source. Neuroscience now confirms that even 10 minutes of daily meditation can lower stress, reset emotional balance, and increase resilience. Each time you meditate, you're not just calming your mind, you're fortifying your energy field against subtle drains. Carl Jung often encouraged his patients to use active imagination, writing dialogues with the hidden parts of themselves. Journaling is the modern version of this. When you put pen to paper, you give voice to what lies beneath. You begin to see patterns, repeated triggers, and unhealed wounds that parasites exploit. Writing creates clarity, and clarity creates strength. Make it a daily ritual. Before bed, jot down the moments that drained you and those that nourished you. Over time, the map becomes visible. You see not only who pulls at your energy, but also where your own boundaries falter. And with that awareness, you begin to shift. Energy must circulate. Stagnant energy is vulnerable energy. That's why physical movement, whether through yoga, dance, walking, or simple stretching, matters so deeply. Ingo Swann believed consciousness itself was electromagnetic. Movement keeps that field vibrant. When you move, you shake loose what does not belong. You reset the flow. Pair this with time in nature, and the effect is amplified. Science shows that spending even 20 minutes outdoors lowers cortisol, restores focus, and strengthens immunity. Spiritually, nature is the great purifier. It doesn't ask, it doesn't drain, it simply restores. When you feel empty, step outside. Let the trees breathe for you. Let the earth absorb what is not yours. We've spoken of boundaries before, but here we bring them into practice. The truth is, saying no is a spiritual discipline. It is not about rejection. It is about alignment. Each no to what drains you is a yes to your higher purpose. Yet for many, guilt becomes the hook. Here's the reminder. Your worth is not measured by how much you endure. Try this simple practice. The next time someone asks something of you, pause before answering. Place a hand on your heart. Ask, does this expand me or deplete me? Let your body answer before your mind. That answer is your boundary. Honor it. Over time, you'll discover that real empowerment comes not from pleasing everyone, but from living in truth. Just as you shower daily to clean the body, you must cleanse your energy. Practices vary. Some use visualization, imagining golden light washing through every cell. Others use sound, chanting, or singing bowls. Even simple rituals like lighting a candle or burning sage can signal to your psyche, I release what is not mine. Einstein reminded us that energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. Clearing is the act of transformation. You take the residue of parasitic interactions and alchemize them into light. Do this daily, and your spirit remains unburdened. Finally, remember this. Your light grows stronger when shared, but only when it flows from fullness, not depletion. True service is joyful, not obligatory. When you give from overflow, Parasites cannot hook into you because there is no wound being exploited, only love flowing freely. Whether it's offering kindness to a stranger, listening deeply to a friend, or contributing your gifts to a community, service rooted in empowerment becomes your shield. It reminds you that you are part of something greater and that your flame, once lit, was never meant to burn alone. These practices are not grand or complicated. They are daily, humble, repeatable. Breath, writing, movement, boundaries, cleansing, service. When woven into your days, they transform you into a radiant being whose energy is sovereign and steady. The spiritual parasites may still exist in the world, but their hooks find no purchase in you. And now, as we arrive at the final chapter, we will step back and gather the threads together. What have we learned about these hidden drains of the soul? And how do we carry forward the wisdom, not in fear, but in strength, discernment, and radiant freedom? As we bring this journey to a close, let's pause and breathe in the path we've walked together. We began with an unsettling question. Why do some encounters leave us hollow, as if our very soul has been drained without a word? From there, we traced the origins of this mystery, through the whispers of the Gnostics who warned of archons feeding on ignorance, through Eastern visions of hungry ghosts and asuras, through Jung's recognition of psychic vampires, through Cayce's insights into sleeping souls, and even through Einstein's reminder that what happens to one of us ripples through the whole. When we look back on this journey, what stands out is not the details of each chapter, but the truth that has quietly woven them together, that your soul was never meant to live in shadows, drained and diminished by forces you could not name. What we explored was not superstition, but the reality that energy is the most precious currency of life, and where it flows determines who we become. The warning of the ancients, the insights of Jung and Cayce, even the whispers of modern science all point in the same direction, that sovereignty of spirit is the foundation of true freedom. Breaking free from the subtle cords that siphon our vitality is not merely an act of self-preservation, it is an act of awakening. To reclaim your energy is to remember who you are, a radiant being, capable of wisdom, compassion, and strength far beyond the reach of any parasite. It is to step into a life where you are no longer defined by what drains you, but by what you choose to create, nurture, and embody. And perhaps the most empowering truth of all is this: the light you reclaim does not shine for you alone. Each time you guard your energy, each time you choose clarity over confusion, you strengthen the entire web of life. Your radiance becomes a beacon, quietly reminding others that they too can awaken, that they too can live untethered, luminous, and free. So as you leave this video, I invite you to ask yourself, where am I still leaking energy? Who or what am I giving my light to without return? And what is one practice I can begin today to reclaim it? Start small. Choose one discipline from the tools we discussed, perhaps a few minutes of breath work, a page in your journal, or a walk under the trees. Let it become a habit and watch as your light grows steadier, your presence brighter, your heart freer. And now, a gentle call. If this journey has spoken to you, if it has awakened something you've long felt but never named, please let this not be the end. Support the growth of this community by subscribing to Awakened Wisdom. Share this video with someone who may quietly be carrying the weight of parasitic drains without understanding why. And leave a comment below. Type 1 if you recognize these dynamics in your own life, or 0 if you are still exploring but feel the call to protect your light. Your voice matters, not just to me, but to everyone who gathers here seeking truth. Because in the end, this was never about superstition or fear. It was about remembering what you've always known, that your soul is sovereign, that your light is precious, and that you have the power to live radiant, empowered, and free. You are watching Awakened Wisdom, where ancient truth meets modern awakening. I'll see you in the next chapter. Until then, keep your flame burning, your heart open, and your soul unbound.